Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask Adam Live. As you have listened to this show before, you know that ask is not to ask Adam a question, although I welcome any questions that you have. Either send them to the website or to the email address. Certainly reach out and would love to hear what your question is. But ask is actually an acronym for always seek knowledge, amongst other things. We're going to follow that theme again in this episode of Always Seeking Knowledge. My name is Adam, and of course, live is what the show is each week. What we're going to talk about this week is motivation and kind of the importance of motivation in personal and your professional growth. One of the key takeaways you're going to take from this episode is understanding the root of motivation. And I don't really like the term motivation. We'll get into that shortly, but how you can apply some of what you'll hear in this episode to reach your overall goals this year. Not to date this episode, but we are coming to the end of the year and looking forward to a new year. And I think this is kind of relevant because many of us are starting to plan, what next year is going to look like for us. So, how do we provide clear, definitions for what it is that we want to do? So let's look at some of the differences between personal satisfaction versus maybe external rewards. As far as motivation, you know, you consider doing something. We'll keep it simple again for a New Year's resolution of sales. You want to make more sales than you did the previous year. Well, is that the external reward of maybe getting an award or accolades from your coworkers or company? Or is that the personal satisfaction of meeting, a threshold that you had before yourself? You know, many myths is that we have to feel motivated in order to do something, and that motivation has to exist all the time. And then that's not true. I think, again, I don't like the word motivation because it's not motivation. It's your why. Understanding and knowing what your why is what gets you through all of it. Quite frankly, it's what gets you out of bed every morning. It's what's going to get you to handle the tasks and even the tasks that aren't part of your goal. Like you want to be better at business. Well, waking up early in the morning and doing an exercise of yoga or some cardio, in doesn't necessarily help sales, but it makes you a better, healthier person to perform those sales. So in the mind of motivation, I just think your why. Your why is that continuous stone on which you're going to step on. And that's going to keep you on your path continuously is understanding your why. That is your motivation. So let's just wipe out motivation out of the dictionary and just put what's your why? Because your why, again, is what's going to get you out of bed in the morning to do the personal growth you need to perform, such as your routine of exercise, eating healthy, going about your day, as well as the practice of learning more about your craft or learning more about people who have performed your craft better. Those are your evening activities. Well, I can convince you to be motivated all day long to do that, but your foundational rock is always going to be your why. Instead of watching and binging streaming TV, your why is what's going to keep you focused on doing what it is that you kind of need to do on that daily routines. We get a little bit of that dopamine reward when we do something where say we get that first sales in the month, right? Maybe we break our monthly goal of 5, 6, 8, 10 sales for that month, and there's that level of dopamine that sort of tells your brain, hey, you're doing something, and to continuously kind of look for that as your reinforcement to your why. Don't necessarily, again, put it back to the word motivation. It's your why. So when you feel that dopamine, start to get in the habit of commingling your why with that feeling. And then you no longer really have to think about your why. It's when that dopamine gets triggered from having that tremendous event and the excitement of the event, and go, oh yeah, my why, boom. Now all of a sudden they're commingling. And that's going to be extremely helpful as we get a little bit later in this podcast. But remember, commingling that dopamine effect and training and preparing yourself for your why, again, just putting those two together is going to be tremendous, as well as it's going to help continue your mindset, and kind of squash those internal the what ifs, and why am I doing this and I'm not successful, or when you miss that sale, you're not getting that dopamine, but you're going to understand your why, and then you're going to be driven to get more dopamine because of your why. Continuously kind of doing this again is going to have you seeking dopamine again because of your why, and you're going to continue to follow that success that's going to go towards your goal, which is your why. Why are you trying to get more sales per month and for this year? Is it to help your family? Is it to make your life better? Is it to pay off some debt? Is it to elevate in your career, to elevate into the company, to look more advanceable by your boss or leadership? What is the why behind that? Don't necessarily trigger it to the dopamine. Here's something interesting and relatable, I believe. It's like looking online, right? You're watching or scrolling through the Instagram, and you see something that's exciting, and it triggers dopamine, and you're kind of excited, and you're like, wow, yeah, that's a great idea. And now you're motivated. Now you're going towards it, but then you put the phone down, and now all of a sudden that excitement is gone. The sales idea is no longer sort of bubbling within, and things are going to fall apart. And that's kind of where your why needs to more be in touch with this reaction of dopamine than necessarily a triggered moment. I'll give you a good example of sort of the short term, and many of you have probably experienced this as you go to the conferences and you go to the events that usually happen once or twice a year within companies or with gurus and mentors. I know I'm not supposed to use that word guru, but somebody who is really super influential, and you're like, man, if I a pilgrimage, if you will, if I could just go and be in a room with this person, and and you get all of this energy and you get all built up, and you're like, yes, things are going to happen, and you see it and you envision, and it must be a time warp. It really must be. Either the car ride home, if it's in your local area, or the waiting at the airport and catching the flight and going through a virtual portal that you just, all this energy sort of exits from your being by the time you actually get in front of the machinery known as your business to actually implement this. So how do we create those lasting moments for change when we absorb that excitement, if we get that new idea? And again, it could be either going to a conference, or many times I sit by myself. I love quiet time, and to just sort of ruminate, and I find it comes from within of what to do, what to talk about, what to share. So, and it may even be within, but that the moment after you sort of get the revelation is the moment you need to move forward, the moment you need to do something. So, understanding your why, your values, certainly understanding your soul's purpose, and of course, what's your long-term vision for all of this, that you need to sort of always have that at the ready and have that in place. I know last episode we talked about SMART goals, and how putting those tasks into manageable um, chunks allowed us to move forward to obtain what it is that we're doing, and where we're trying to go. So motivation. Let's again. I keep using the word motivation, and I again, I don't like it, but it's the common denominator of what we understand, and much of what we're doing is kind of adjusting our language a little bit too in more of a positive frame. So we're going to keep using it until the end of this episode, just because it needs to set in. The simple habits every day uh, of your productive day, like I said, getting up every morning and sort of having that routine. A lot of that is discipline. A lot of that is, it allows you more of an avenue to strategize if you do have these routines in place. If you're getting up in the morning and having that healthy first meal, if you're doing some exercise, meditation, maybe you're doing some reading, some learning, you know, they say that when you wake up, your body's really fresh, and that your subconscious can actually absorb so much more before the distractions of life fall in place. So this is really a good time to read. This is really a good time to tackle that task that you really want to put your best foot forward. That's what you want to do, is take care of that, but certainly eat, be nourished, whether it's a smoothie shake or vitamin juice or whatever it takes to kind of get you to be nourished and fulfilled. Then you want to take that energy and move towards what I always say is the hardest goal, or what's the one you really want to tackle. That's the one you focus on after that routine. But again, putting forth the same routine every day, pretty soon you're not thinking about what those first initial steps are. It allows and frees up your mind to think of the task at hand, which is truly what you're given to do that day, what is in place for you. So putting forth those simple daily habits is the first big step. Another thing, if you have trouble, even getting some of these put in place, is start seeking some friends. It's always been said is you become sort of the five people that surround you. So if those aren't motivational people that you have around you, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but maybe this is your year to readjust your friends and to consider who is providing value, and not in a usury way, but who is truly providing that value and that resource to you in your life to make you the best you. And if you're really devoted on having those few friends in your life, good, bad, or indifferent, then maybe you need to seek out a coach or a mentor that's going to help sort of kind of combat a little bit of the non motivational um, aspects that your friends might not be providing. So, and if you have great friends, hats off to you, because not everyone has that, circle of friends. But if you do, certainly utilize them and appreciate them for what they're helping you to do and to get through. Also, maybe a mastermind group of individuals that are in your field or the field that you're seeking. What it is that you are trying to work towards. Get a group of those individuals, and quite frankly, online it could be all over the world. I have a group that we meet weekly online, and they are all over the world. Quite frankly, in other countries, and we share and we build and we exchange ideas, and that is just another tool in my toolbox that helps to just kind of get different concepts and different understandings, as well as that group of individuals to help sort of talk you through maybe a little bit of something that you're going through, and they can help just get through things. Again, so many times when you think of this journey that we're on, you need a trail guide. You need somebody that's kind of gone before you, or at least someone who's familiar with the trail, to say, "Hey, we're going to cross a creek. You may get wet. We're going to hope the bridge is still in place that gets us over the ravine." Stuff like that. to know what the finish line looks like, to have that person with you is hugely important. So certainly have that supportive friend group, have a coach or two, a mentor, as well as a mastermind group, and they're going to help kind of keep you on track. And that is also the group I think you're going to get the support that you share your why, and they're going to remind you of your why, and they're going to help maybe combat some of the thoughts and feelings and experiences that you have, to at least meet them weekly when you do have some of those concerns and you're like, man, I'm just having a really tough week. They're going to be your coach and mentor to say, hey, remember your why? And then you go, oh yeah. And then you move forward. And it may take a couple of events of them reminding you your why, because you're so busy just trying to do what you're doing. And pretty soon, that when that why kind of gets thrown back at you, now all of a sudden it really can set heart, if it's not already there, that it's something you never forget. And now you live strictly by your why. We're all going to have setbacks. We're all going to have a little bit of, maybe some procrastination or some fear of doing something. And you know what? That's okay. It's all right. I'm going to give you a pass to feel unworthy. I'm going to give you a pass to feel fearful. I'm going to give you a pass for maybe an event of procrastination. I'm going to give you a pass. You can give yourself a pass. But here's the kicker. You get 5 minutes. We all have smartphones in our hand now. They all have timers, some kind of a device. If you're really antiquated and don't have a smartphone, a nice egg timer works. Set it for 5 minutes. That's what you get. I'm going to give you a pass for 5 minutes to set 5 minutes to procrastinate, to avoid something, 5 minutes to sit around and think about fear and whatever it is that you feel is stopping you, whether it's the toxic 10 of unworthy, that you just don't feel like it's something that you can do. You get 5 minutes. When those 5 minutes are up, guess what? Now you're going to go and do it, and you're not going to think about it anymore. And that can also, you can do that by, again, sit down, give yourself 5 minutes, and whatever you want to do, mess around, scroll on Instagram, do whatever it is that you do to procrastinate. Then when that alarm goes off, your 5 minutes are up. And it's time to get focused and move towards what it is that you sought out to do that day. And one of the things that I like to do, and it kind of breaks up the mental thing, and pretty soon you're not going to feel this procrastination. You'll be like, 5 minutes, man, I can't wait 5 minutes to mess around and do this. Maybe you're down to 2.5 minutes. Maybe you're down to 30 seconds. But one of the things that I've found that helps me, or that helps me to get out of that, or did, is within that 5 minutes, just stand up. Stand up. And pretty soon the ideas that you had while sitting, quite frankly, are still in the chair. Now you're vertical. You're standing up. You're far away from those ideas. I know it sounds silly, but try it a couple of times. And then let me know it didn't work. And maybe we could have a conversation to understand a little bit more of the details. But just on the surface, for this particular episode, I'm going to share with you is within that 5 minutes, and or when the alarm goes off, stand up and say, I'm going to do blank. And then you're going to pat yourself on the back. You're going to smile, kind of as if you've already done it, as if you've already succeeded, as if it's already accomplished. And then I want you, because within seconds, you're going to go, yeah. And that dopamine is going to kick in of success. And, well, okay, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. That idea of fear, procrastination, hesitation, fear of failure, fear of loss, not worthy enough, all of those toxic 10s are still sitting in the chair. They're no longer part of you, and now you can move forward. And the faster you implement this, and the quicker you put this into place each time you feel this feeling, I think the less you're going to feel that feeling, and you're going to be able to move forward just as you want to accomplish your goals. And again, with the subset of your why being there, I think it's going to shorten up that 5 minutes. But like I said, I'm going to give you a pass. You get 5 minutes, mess around, and yeah, see how long you can actually mess around for 5 minutes, and pretty soon your goals are going to start scratching at you and saying, "Hey, we need to move forward." So don't look at the setbacks. Look at, I need to get forward. And you start shifting your mindset to the, the M word, and realizing that you got to go do this because of your why, not the M word, your why. That will shorten it up. And try that exercise. It's kind of silly, but it works. And yeah, it works. That's all I can say. When you get to knowing your why, and you get to shortening out that procrastination, fear of failure, fear of loss, and you start eliminating those toxic tens, and now you're going at it. You're proceeding forward, quite frankly, at lightning speed, and you're having those successes. One of the things that you can also encounter, and here are some of the early warning signs, is that you may start to get burned out because you're just going at 100 miles an hour and you're moving at your goals. I would like to say that many times you start to see those small nuggets of success, which kind of keep you going. Sometimes you may find yourself moving forward, but the landscape's not changing, so you don't feel like you're moving forward. And this can sometimes be a little bit analyzed as burnout. And one of the ways, again, to kind of avoid that is have that early routine. As I said, if you have an exercise routine, getting up and eating healthy, it helps create that energy of continuance where you can avoid the burnout. You can keep going forward, even though maybe the landscape's not changing and you start to feel that maybe you're not moving forward. So having yourself in the best shape allows you to get a little bit more of that endurance to follow through. So again, the importance of just having that unconscious routine of processing forward and just keep moving, because believe it or not, the little things that we do in life are what at the end makes the big difference. When you look back and you see that you've reached that success point, you've surpassed that goal, and now you're planning for the next goal, you're going to start to find that those daily routines is kind of what keeps the sustainability. And so you're no longer reliant on the M word. You're just still about your why. And your why isn't something that changes. It may, I think your why gets crafted a little bit. Almost think of a sculpture. It's probably the best example where they start out. I always think about the guys that take the tree stumps or the tree trunks, and they get out the chainsaw and they're just chipping and cutting and carrying on, and you're like, it's a tree stump, and all of a sudden they're done and it's a bear, and you can see the fur and the eyes and the nose and the features and the paws and the claws and you're like, that was a stump of wood, but with a chainsaw they created something. So I think your why is always sort of that stump of wood, and you're just through the process of meeting, surpassing each one of these goals in front of you, start to make the why more and more apparent, like the bear becomes apparent in the tree stump. That being said, your why is never changing. So as long as you're constantly focused on the why, you don't need the M word, you still need the why. Keeping that daily routine is really, for most folks, I'd say that's getting you through 80% of your day is your routine. What you now have put in place, your eating habits, your exercise habits, your focus habits. The 20%, let's say, give or, well, let's say 10% is the focus on what you're actually doing, your positive movements of action that are going towards what you're actually accomplishing, what you're doing, whether that's writing a book, setting up a blog, whether that's a sales strategy, whether that's working on your business, any of those things, we'll call it 15%. And then the 5% would be with your family and friends. That's kind of the ratio. But notice how 80% is all about you and making you better. Again, eating right, exercise, doing all of the things that make you a better you. And quite frankly, when you're a better you're a better you to other people. And not knowing your why, I'm pretty certain that your why isn't about you, it's about other people. So you need to be the best you to show up for those so that you can perform your why, to succeed in your why. One of the things that I found that kind of got me through was the no. And I had just finished a book by a gentleman who was actually out to seek no in a unique way. Because I remember reading another book that was like how to get past the 10th no. The 11th no was always the magic, if you will. And I can speak from experience that I had 10,000 no's, and I learned a lot from that. I learned that it's not necessarily the 11th no, and it's kind of interesting. I found out later, and again, the stepping stones of learning by which we are going through in this journey of life through our voyage is knowing the right thing at the right time, right? And so I didn't necessarily know this, but it's quite interesting, so I'm going to share it with you now. Is it's don't take no, but take it as a different way of saying yes. Okay. And that was where this particular book that I had just finished reading was about the gentleman who just found out a different way to ask the question. And he was out to find basically 100 times that he could actually get a no. And it was quite interesting with some of the ways that he learned how to ask the question would change. And if he did get an immediate no, he would alter the question and then alter the question and alter the question. Um, what was one of them was kind of interesting was the guy had asked if he could, I think it was fly a plane with passengers on it. And the guy was like, well, no, you can't. That's a huge liability. And he's like, okay, well, can I do this? And he kept asking what it was that he could do. So it was kind of interesting that finally the guy said, you know what you can do is if you meet me on a given day, I can help you be able to do what you want to do, just reduce the liability. So they met on a given day and he allowed him and taught him how to fly this particular helicopter slash plane. And it allowed him to do it in a private setting without the liability of having people around. But it was his persistent asking to do something and just trying to find that action that was acceptable, right? That from the person. So it's not necessarily a no. So I think my experience of finding 10,000 no's was just not pivoting to the action that was asking the question in a different way. So I share that with you to say that, don't take no's to squash your why, to squash this M word of this next year, but start asking questions in a different way. And I think that is going to help enhance a little bit too of this M word, because you're going to start seeing a little bit more success. And don't take that no, but take it as, oh, I didn't ask the right way. Okay, let me ask it this way. Well, I'm not sure we could do that either. Oh, okay. Well, it's not a no. Don't take that as a no. Take it as, oh, got to reframe my question. It's kind of like, well, in modern day chat GPT, right? And you ask it something and it gives you a weird answer and you're like, nah, that's not what I was thinking. Well, you have to ask a couple times so that it understands what you're asking so it knows how to perform. Again, it's not necessarily human with emotions yet, but I think it's getting close. So consider, we're humans with emotions. You have to ask it that question maybe in several different ways to allow them to understand your why without you telling them your why. Does that make sense? And I think that is what creates the M word to move forward, is that they understand your why. Now, many people that you talk to, they pretty much come out and tell you their why. And they say, hey, I'm doing this because, and this, that, and something else. And when I can get this together, then I'm going to do this and this and this. And they give you the whole dissertation about their why, and you're like, oh, well, okay. And sometimes it's so compelling that you're like, you know what, you already had me at the first sentence, I'm on board. But many times, if you don't have that time to share your whole dissertation about your why, because it's pretty in depth and has lots of different parts to your why, your particular why, then always go back to the root of your why in how you're asking the question. And I think part of that sole purpose, part of that positive energy, part of you doing something for your why, and we could put that in parentheses as the greater cause. Once you've done that, I think now that sometimes can change the way someone answers that particular question, is because they now see you coming from empathy. They now see you coming from, like I would like for someone to do A, not for me, but for the why, right? And so I think a lot of people do things more for the why. Here's another example, right? During the holidays, they have the bell ringers out in front of the store. Now, would it be because of the individual out ringing the bell that you're filling the red kettle, or because you know it's a greater cause that's helping people, for the greater good? Now, it's probably not a very good example, because I think I actually gave extra to the kettle just because of the theatrics of the individual ringing the bell. And I'm like, you know what? Not only was that entertaining, but I know it's going for a good cause, just as an example. But I think of my friend Tony Robbins, where his why isn't necessarily to, uh, although it is part of what he does, is make individuals better and help them find themselves and help them find their soul purpose and find the energy within to do what it is that they're basically born to do, and allow us to find that within ourselves. So, but if you ask Tony his why, and he'll dial it back to say he's feeding families. His motivational stuff is kind of the daily, but his big why, his big where it all came from, was that he's out feeding. Now I think it's up to over 1 billion people is his goal, if he hasn't already uh, gone beyond that as of this particular podcast. So it's like, but and he'll kind of tell you his why. He's like, I'm feeding families. I want to make sure that no one goes hungry. And that was an experience that absolutely changed his life. So, to put something solid as your why, you're still going to do the daily, you're still going to do your self improvement and all that, but at the end of the day, your why, and again, that's only your 10% of what you're doing every day is your why. But see how it has such a big effect around what you're doing is that it's helping you be healthy so that you can sustain getting out and doing your why. Do you see how it's helping always daily your mindset of being positive because you're striving towards your why? So it's this small percentage being your why that's basically kind of dictating your life, which is 80%. And then to circle around the 5% with your family and friends make you, quite frankly, a more attractive person to be around because of all this positive energy surrounded by your why, and you're exercising and all of the things that you're doing, with your business and stuff, just have you such have you at such a high energy that, yeah, you're unstoppable. And so that's where I go back to what I originally said. You don't need the M word. You just need to understand your why. And that will give you all of the M's that you ever need. In fact, you'll look at it and say, you know what, I don't need that. That's silly. You'll start to understand how I'm thinking, which I will appreciate you for that, is you don't need the M word. You just need to wake up and go, yep, why I'm doing it. And then at the end of the day or through the process of the day, you go, yep, that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm doing it. Why I'm doing it. And at the end of the day, you lay your head on the pillow and you go, it was a great day. And yep, that's why I'm doing it. Again, always remember your why and focus on that why. And again, continue to carve out that why. And it sometimes isn't apparent, but it's because it sometimes it's apparent, sometimes it's not. I am a firm believer that it's entrenched in your soul, so it's something you feel. You will feel that dopamine. Once you know what it is that you're passionate about and why you do things, it sticks. It's there. And that's going to be the pivotal reason why you do everything in life is that why. If you don't have a why, I understand. It took me almost kind of half my life to realize my why. And I always try to convince myself to say it was just because I had trouble with the chainsaw. It wasn't the stump of wood, it was the chainsaw. It was the gas, the oil, the blade wasn't sharpened, whatever. Anyway, I finally have an instrument uh, that can carve out my stump and create my why and help me see much clearer my why, or even just the idea of my why, of what this stump is eventually supposed to look like, whether it's an owl or a sign or a bear or any given animal. I've seen tigers. Yeah, just carve what you want, uh, but that is your why, and that's your visual of what your why is. If you're not there yet, sit down and start your routines with being healthy. Start your routines with sitting down and being quiet with yourself. If being quiet and still isn't quite your thing, spiral notebooks you can buy at a dollar store, at Walmart, anywhere, quite cheap. A box of pens, and just start journaling every day. Put the date at the top of the page and just start writing. I always have, I think I mentioned before, is the three things that I'm grateful for each day that I put down, and I wrote down a journal every day of what I was grateful for, or what I envisioned my life to be, or what I wanted something to look like. That is what helped to transform my ideas to understand a lot more of my why, was just kind of writing it out, and my thoughts, how I felt. And sometimes I'll share with you, it wasn't the easiest thing to do. And many times I sat down and I was angry, and I didn't want to not do the event. I didn't not want to participate, and to avoid procrastination, I wrote a page in anger and just said all the things I didn't like. Um, Now, again, what we write, we invite. So I don't necessarily say that that's the case, but you know, we have to sometimes do certain things that aren't correct in order to allow us to then pivot our direction to do the correct thing. So if this is what you have to do and go to that extreme, such as I did, write out your anger and get it out. And then tell yourself, okay, there's my 5 minutes. I've gotten that out. I'm going to change. I'm going to be different. And the next day, start being grateful for something and write out your gratitude. Write out what you want. Write out what you dreamed, what you think. If something, you wake up in the morning and you're like, wow, that's a weird dream, write it out and just start sketching out the emotions, how you felt, the details, whatever that dream. If you have a premonition about something and it triggers that dopamine, like, you know what, I'm really excited about this and I don't know why, then start writing it out. And hey, I'm really excited about this and I don't know why. I think it might do this. And if it could do this, then that would be great. And just journal it out. I think you'll find that, again, what you write, you invite, but it's going to start evolving into those positive pages being written. Then, at which point, you may be able to sit by yourself and you may be able to sort of just let that kind of happen within and be a part of you where you may write down, hey, this is what I felt after 15 minutes of meditation. This is what I want to do. And through that process, and don't be, like I said, don't beat yourself up if it doesn't come right away. Like, these are your stepping stones. Again, we all have stepping stones. Some stones are bigger and a little harder to get over or through, and other stones are just small. Consider these stones the ability of growth that you're going to go through, and it's part of your path. It's part of what you're doing. I can only recommend the sooner the better that you begin this process and that you go through this to understand more of your why, because another thing is that we're all here for a specific reason. We're all here to do something. Streaming Netflix, I don't think is it, because you were here before Netflix. In fact, many of us were here, quite frankly, before TV, which I think was around the 50s. So, and again, the population's evolving, but streaming's what, maybe 15, 20 years old. So if you're over the age of 30, you were around long before streaming. Your purpose is not streaming. Watching streaming television is to do something else. And quite frankly, if you were born after the advent of streaming, well, you get to enjoy a little something, but I think you'll find that your soul's purpose is certainly something besides that. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong. We all have our minute of enjoyment, and that is the 5% of your day that you get to do something personal. So whether it's with family, whether it's with friends, hey, you divide up that 5% the best way you can. But again, 80% is you, 10%, 15% is your life and work life, and basically your sustainability of reaching your goals, what you're doing. And then you get that 5% of your personal time to do with it as you wish. So start with journaling to figure out your why. If you already know your why, congratulations. And again, just start focusing. If you find yourself stepping away from your why, keep focusing on those various steps of putting it to that 10 to 15%. And remember to keep yourself as healthy and as invigorated as you can to keep pushing towards your why. Remember, it's your why that keeps you going, that creates that sustainability. If you have absolutely surpassed any of the examples in this episode, I certainly applaud you. And if you have any recommendations for me, I certainly would welcome those. If I've maybe gone off base or said something that wasn't true and you're like, yeah, I didn't have to do that. Well, okay. I would certainly appreciate learning about that. But I think most of the points that I've hit are pretty much spot on. And if you're already been successful at this and you far surpassed it, congratulations. If you know someone that could benefit from what we've shared today, certainly share this podcast with them. Click like or subscribe. And just remember that your why reinforces the idea that can help cultivate what you truly, truly are looking to do. Resilience, leadership, and personal growth is what's going to be in our next episode, just as a little teaser. If you aren't already, click like or subscribe, Instagram, Facebook, and on X, Ask Adam Live. I can only express the great gratitude for the audience and those who are listening, those who are struggling, those who are well on their way, and those who have far exceeded their why. I applaud each one of you in your journey as we are all going through it at different levels, but at the end of the day, we can all agree the root to each one of our steps is that we have a why. Until next time, always seek knowledge, and thanks for being part of the Ask Adam Live